COMC.com is your home for buying, selling, and flipping all the hottest trading cards. Their consignment marketplace is home to over 24 million cards across all sports, genres, and eras. With a COMC.com account, you can purchase cards from different sellers over time and ship them home together later, or immediately reprice them for sale on the COMC marketplace. To learn more about the exciting changes being made at COMC, please visit blog.comc.com. You're listening to the Wax Pack Hero Sports Card Minute, a podcast where we discuss both the hobby and business sides of collecting. I'm your host, Mike Summer, and I want to help you buy, sell, and trade your way into a collection you'll love. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Wax Pack Hero Sports Card Minute. We are on episode 127, and we are just chugging right along. These types of episodes that we do today are some of my favorite to do. It is providing information, hints and tips and strategies about using COMC. I love providing advice on how to use eBay, how to use sport lots, how to sell on Facebook Marketplace, and some of the strategies that I even use in the shop. But it's also a lot of fun to talk about strategies and tips and tricks that I use on COMC. I get questions all the time. What cards should I sell on sport lots? What cards should I sell on COMC? How do you decide what to list on eBay? And today I sit down with Dr. Beckett and we talk about some of the strategies that we use on COMC to make it more enjoyable as both a buyer and a seller. And I think that's an important thing to note. These strategies that we'll talk about today aren't just if you're a reseller, aren't just if you're a flipper, but we share some things that make it easier and more intuitive as a buyer and help you get some cheaper prices if you're just trying to buy and collect on COMC as well. And so Dr. Beckett and I sit down and talk through that. He actually approached me about this idea several weeks ago and said, hey, we're both sponsored by COMC. We're both heavy users of COMC. What if we just sit down and talk and share some of the things that we do to make COMC more user-friendly? And I said, that sounds like a great idea. So he's been breaking it up into smaller segments since Dr. Beckett's podcast is capped at about 15 minutes. I'm going to run our full conversation today. I'm going to go ahead and start that conversation as soon as I tell you about Underdog Collectibles, the online shop run by collectors for collectors. They break new product every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday night. And you can watch them break that product live on YouTube or in their physical shop in Knoxville, Tennessee. You can learn more about everything that Underdog has going on at udogcollect.com, and you can check out their Facebook community as well. Just search for the Underdogs. And wherever you find them, make sure you tell them that Wax Pack Hero sent you.
This is Ty Dillon, and you're listening to the Wax Pack Hero Sports Card Minute.
Well, thanks, Mike Summer, for being here, a Wax Pack Hero. Going to enjoy going back and forth with COMC hacks, how you optimize your, not just financially, but enjoyment-wise. How are you getting the most out of COMC? And I'm going to share some of the things that I do, or maybe we can ask each other's questions. But again, thanks for being on. And what's your first hack, Mike? Guests go first.
All right. Well, yeah, thanks again for having me on. COMC is a platform that I found upon my return to the hobby in 2015. And so I've loved getting involved, both buying and selling. So yeah, there's a few hints and tips and tricks along the way that I've been able to come up with that make life easier for me on COMC. And I think the first one that I would share when it comes to buying, because that's how I got started, is getting on there and buying cards I wanted for my collection, is to take advantage of the ability to make offers. And one of the things I would add on along with that is, but before you make an offer, take a look to see if that seller has other cards you're interested in as well, because I've found that often that seller is willing to accept that offer if you're trying to buy multiple things from him versus just one random card.
You're reading my mind. Yeah, if I get an offer for one card, I kind of scrutinize that. If it's an offer for 10 cards, I'm thinking, well, I don't want to take an offer on one, but these other 9 I will. And so I go with the flow. That's a good suggestion. Okay, my question for you, which is a little, I will disclose mine, but how do you determine how much money to retain in your account? What is your optimum? Do you leave, dozens of dollars, hundreds of dollars? I mean, what, I was going to ask you first, but maybe this is a hack. So I leave enough money in there. So if something came up with a port that I might be interested, I could pay with money within the system, because you don't want to be putting new money into the system. That is a negative hack. If you got to put new money in, then getting it out, you're going to take a little bit of a haircut. So I leave money in there. What's your strategy, Mike?
I would say it is similar. I'm usually leaving at least hundreds in there because I try to go with the philosophy of having my COMC account be somewhat self-contained. So I made an initial deposit when I was first trying it out, and then I made another deposit the first time I ever submitted cards to cover those processing fees. But since then, I've never submitted, or I've never had to deposit any additional money. Everything that I've sent in to be processed, everything I've bought on the site has all been paid for through my sales subsequently. So I don't withdraw to a point where I might need to deposit again, because I don't want to pay that withdrawal fee. And I also don't want to put additional deposits be subject to sales tax and things like that now. So I try to leave a pretty hefty balance there on the site to be able to cover future submissions and cards that I am looking forward to buy. Like you mentioned, ports. That's something that I've not gotten a lot of involvement with yet at this point. I'm still trying to kind of figure out that whole aspect of the site, but I definitely err or lean towards that side of having a bigger account balance or leaving more money on the site to handle those future purchases and submissions.
So you're saying, as I'm saying, is that I trust COMC enough that I'm not worried about leaving money in there. I'm not trying to clean it out at the end of the month, worrying that they are not trustworthy with the money. It's my account. I'm going to draw it down as I need. Okay, that's good.
Yep.
Okay, your turn again.
I was curious on, you've got cards that you're looking for, that you're interested in, that you try to investigate or research or try to understand when and if they're going to become available for purchase on COMC. I was curious on what strategy you use to find or be alerted of the cards you're looking for if they come available.
That is available, and I have not availed myself of that. And it's partly because I'm scared that if I put down all the cards that I would love to have, that I'd be overwhelmed. So basically, I'm trying to I've given myself permission to just kind of be more random walk. When I'm looking around there, I'll see something. The main time I see things that I buy is when I'm looking to post cards of my own. And I'm looking at that and I'll see, hey, I wouldn't mind having that at that price. So it's more, less of it being pushed to me and more finding. So, but I think it's an excellent service. If I really was way more of a player collector, or at least the cards I needed were less exotic, I would do. I think COMC is a great place to do that.
Yeah, I think the tip that I've got for people who are looking to do that, if they're down to a specific card that they're looking for, there's no direct alert feature on COMC. There's no way to really subscribe to a specific card to be notified when that's added. But because they now list every card on eBay, you can leverage the eBay alert functionality to be notified when something's added to eBay, and then look up to see if that's a COMC item or not, to then be able to go back to your COMC account to buy it directly. And so you can use that eBay alert functionality as a workaround to be notified when COMC actually adds that card you're looking for.
Okay. Okay, my turn. What do you think what's the best strategy for you in terms of allowing offers? Do you allow offers at 50%, 90%, or anything, or no offers? Some sellers say, I don't want to accept offers. It's my price.
The strategy that I used to use, and to be honest, I'm not sure that I've adjusted it yet, is I used to have auto accept on at a pretty decent clip, because there was a point where if you sold it on eBay or Amazon, they automatically took a cut off the top. And so I always went with the mindset was if I'm willing to let it sell on eBay or Amazon and take that hit, I'll accept an offer automatically.
That was the 80% rule, wasn't it?
That was the 80% rule. And then I think I go down to 65 or 70% of an asking price is what I will listen to that offer at. And my main philosophy there is typically I'm trying to price cards and be one of the cheaper options listed. And so I'm already pricing to be competitive, and I'll listen to a lower offer. But if it's down to a 10 or 20 or 30% type offer, a real low ball, I don't even want to mess with it. And so that's why I do have a minimum on there. But I think I've got my auto accept still somewhere in that 80% range.
That's, I've always thought that when somebody makes me an offer, why are they offering at the lowest possible offer price? It gets my attention if somebody doesn't offer at the minimum offer, they offer a little bit more. Do you feel the same way?
I figure, I don't know. I mean, I think to some extent I will test that myself when buying. I will make an offer of something that I think is fair, competitive. If it's a card that I'm interested in, but I don't have to have, sometimes I'll make a lower offer just to see where they're at from an auto accept perspective. But at the same time, I've offered sometimes 95% of what they're asking for and still got declined. So you just never know, I think.
Is the reason you said you don't, when you post your cards for sale, you don't necessarily try to be the absolute lowest? Is that because of if they made an offer could be at a lower price than somebody else that's listed?
Yeah, that's part of it. Sometimes it's because I know that I'm going to be planning to have a sale and run a promotion for an extended period of time. That gets into one of the other tips I had as a seller is to have a strategy, right? And so some cards that are not frequent movers, but have some value to them, I've found that sometimes you might want to be the lowest because if it doesn't sell through at a fast rate, you need to be on that lower end if you want to have a chance of selling the card. But there's some cards that you look at that sales volume and it is just humming right along. And I might, you look at that and you say, well, I could be the 10th cheapest, but they're selling at 30 or 40 cards a quarter, right? And so it's not going to take too long before I might become the cheapest on into the future. So it really just kind of depends. And then there's some cards that I'm looking at this from a long-term view, and I don't care if I sell it this year. I'd be okay selling it 3 or 4 years from now. And so I might have that card priced even more expensively, just depending on what it is. But it all fits into a specific strategy. It's not just randomly assigning a price to a card.
The patient flipper. You're willing to wait 3 or 4 years. I'm willing to wait 8 years now. I've reduced my horizon to 8 years. When you post some cards and you put up a bunch of cards you sent in and they've listed them and now you have to price them. Or what I do is I order them. I generally put them in age order. I do the oldest ones, so I kind of put them in sequence. So I'm doing all the same set all in a row. And it's otherwise they present it to you in the order that they enter them. And that's not necessarily in exactly the same order because it could jump around depending on the mix of what I sent them. And again, it's amazing that they can, I sent them all these miscellaneous cards. They've got to figure out what they are, scan them and put them in there. But for me, I've got to remember that, well, okay, now I get into a pricing philosophy of certain set and, do that. So do you do anything different, or is that kind of what you do if you submit a?
That's a good question. I honestly have never reordered the list of cards that are there for me to price. I've just kind of worked them from top to bottom, and I'll typically do some combination of looking at the other listed cards from that item or from that set to get a feel for what it should be priced at, and comparing to eBay if it's something where I've got a COMC monopoly and I want to make sure that I'm pricing it somewhat competitively and don't have another frame of reference on site already. And so typically I'll balance some combination of the other inventory that's already on COMC for that set and card, and eBay for where I'm going to go. But as far as ordering, I've never really even messed with reordering the list of cards that I need to price.
Well, what I find the problem is if you're putting something in there you're the only one on the site. Well, then you got to figure, what am I going to price that at? And are you saying you go look at eBay to see if that particular card's on eBay, even if it's not on COMC, and then you price accordingly?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll do that. Or if it's, sometimes if it's a certain insert set and I'm not entirely sure if it's one of the more rare insert sets or if it's one of the more common insert sets, and I happen to be have the only item of that player, I'll look at that set itself on COMC to see, oh, the other 9 from that set are selling for $2. I've got the star. I might be able to sell it for a few more. Or it's, oh, there's only 3 listed from this set and they're all listed at $50 each. That gives me a good frame of reference of where I need to be on it.
Those might be my cards, Mike. I don't know. I've released a bunch of my inserts of players I don't collect as much into the COMC world, and the players collectors don't like it, other than they have the choice to find it at a cheaper price if they can. Okay, your turn. This is your turn now.
All right. One of the tips that I would have for people, especially if you want to do some flipping on the site, is switch your account into advanced reseller mode. And what that does is it removes the automatic 25-cent handling fee that's assigned to every card and allows you to pick up cards pretty cheap. There's one of my favorite things to do on the site is to flip penny cards for well more than a penny. And I will sometimes post a screenshot of something like that. And people are always asking, how do you find a card for a penny? 26 or 28 cents is the cheapest that I'm seeing anything. And it's like, because you're not in advanced reseller mode. So you've got that 25-cent per card load already built in. So if you flip to advanced reseller mode, if you're going to do a lot of flipping, it allows you to buy and sell those and turn those cards over without that extra charge. And then you just ultimately pay that 25 cents if you actually have a card shipped back to you.
Right. So as long as you don't ship it back, you got a penny. And for somebody to compete with you, they got to pay 50 cents to list it. And
Yep.
so if you're obviously going to be the lowest person on the site, but you bought it at a penny, what do you mark it up to? 51 cents or?
So that gets to the other strategy that I'll go ahead and share, even though it probably is somewhat to my detriment. But I do this a lot with some of the cards that are part of the EPAC program. I will buy those cards for a penny or 2 pennies. I'll buy as many as I can, and then I'll reprice them for about 38 or 39 cents, which I believe translates to about $1 on eBay. And so that's kind of the threshold for where it will hit that minimum listing price on eBay. And the way it works is then if somebody buys it on eBay, whether I have it listed for 3 cents or whether I have it listed for 38 cents, they're still paying COMC $1 for that card. And so I might as well, keep that float for myself and take that chance to wait it out. And then if I'm buying enough of them, I'm buying enough inventory sometimes on those EPAC cards where I might own 60, 70% of the cards on the site. And I've bought enough of them and repriced them all up to that new 38-cent threshold. And so that's one of the ways that I've gone about that. And so sometimes it's a penny and I sell it for 38 cents. Sometimes I pay 20, 25 cents for it and sell it for 38 cents. But in the grand scheme of things, when you average it all out, it's done well for me over time, but you have to be patient.
Yeah, but a patient at a penny, it's not like you got a lot in it. And a lot of upside, obviously, other than the fact that it may not sell. It may just sit there. I mean, that's not everything sells every month. But if you're for people that are putting in or building up their inventory on COMC, it's 50 cents a card now, the cheapest to put it in there. Is there a lowest price card? Would you put a $1 card in? Would you pay 50 cents to list a card at $1 if you thought it would sell within some time frame?
Typically that is about the minimum that I look to submit at this point is about $1. And I will, depending on what I've bought it at, sometimes if I'm buying out a collection and my average cost on this collection is a couple pennies a card, I will go ahead and send it in to COMC if it's something that I don't have a lot of traction for at the shop, or I'm not going to be able to do much with, because I figure my actual cost of the card is 2 or 3 cents. I'm going to pay 50 cents to get it listed. If I can sell it for $1.25, there's still enough, room in there, enough profit for me. And in the long run, those extra quarters add up. And so typically that dollar is the threshold that I'm using when I send something in.
Yeah. The other thing is, when I'm getting ready to send something in and I see that there's only one on the site and it's at a quarter, well, then I could just buy it for a quarter, instead of paying 50 cents to put another one in there and compete with the person at a quarter.
Yep.
So would you do the same thing? Would you just take the quarter?
Yeah, I would typically do something like that if there's a card that's in that range. I was curious from your perspective, especially if you've got any kind of inventory, you might be priced competitively at one point, but a few months later, you might not be competitive anymore, and so whether it's things that are going up or things that are coming down in price, do you have a strategy on how often you go through your inventory and adjust prices?
Yeah, this is I was afraid of this when we were talking about doing this episode. You're gonna give away some of your secrets. I'm gonna give away some of mine. I'll tell you, Mike, when I do it is when somebody makes an offer. When they make an offer, that means I'm going to look at the offer and I'm going to say, wait a minute, I priced this card years ago, and that was an old price. It's really gone up, and they're making me an offer, and I feel like I'm way out of line. They should have just bought the card. And so 1 out of 10 cards or so, I'll wind up raising my price and declining the offer, which I think is my prerogative. I don't like doing it because I think it makes people mad, but if it's a low price, to try to get it a little bit cheaper is maybe not smart for them. So yeah, I hear you, but just combing through my cards, it's hard to do that. I probably have too many to do that even in a systematic way. But if somebody brings to attention of an insert set or a player that's gone up, I'll do it. The other problematic thing that you raised that I'd like you to speak to is that I don't really do sales, but a lot of people do. And so some of the times I priced my cards in line with a current sale that later is rescinded or expires. And now I've been matching a price or competitive with a price that was half or some really drastic reduction. Then I think, wait a minute, how did my price get so low? I was responding to that. So do you have that same thing, or are you one of the sales guys?
I don't run perpetual sales. I'll usually always take advantage of the free sale promotions that the site gives, usually 1 or 2 times a year. And then maybe 1 or 2 other times a year, we'll run a promotion just to try to clear some things out. They've adjusted that, the cost or the commission fee and the fee structure for those promotions now, to a point where I just don't want to do them all that often. You pay a little lower percentage, but there's a bigger upfront fee depending on how many cards you have. And I'm somewhere around 80,000 cards now in inventory. And so it can add up a little bit to start with. I usually run, it probably averages to 2 or 3 promotions a year.
You mentioned velocity of sales. That's one of the things. If you use, I guess it's the history points, you can see how many cards have sold, by quarter in the last years or whatever it's been. Do you look at that a lot? Because I look at it some when I think it's appropriate, but if something is selling, if none have sold in the last 4 years, that's an indicator.
Yeah, I look at it quite a bit. I use that quite a bit to get a feel for both what I want to send in and then also, where I need to price something at.
Yeah. So if you're getting ready to sell a car, if you're going to put a card on there, and when you decided to put it on there, there were none of them on there, but it's like, say it's a newer player and a newer set, last year or two, and there was nothing on there. And then by the time you were posting it, there were two cards at, say, $2 and one at 50 cents. And you're convinced this is a $2 card. What do you do?
Typically, I will go ahead and price that at probably somewhere around $1.90. And so when that one that's super low sells, I'll be the next lowest on there, but I'll be real close to that $2 that I wanted to get out of it.
Okay. I do that, but I also will give strong consideration to buying the card at 50 cents.
Sure.
And moving it to $1.90 or $1.80, $1.70, whatever. $1.70 is a price I'm using a little more these days, because when you add on the quarter, it's under $2.
Yep.
And I've seen people doing that.
Yeah, that's something that I definitely do. If it was as drastic of an example as you just shared, where you'd be able to essentially triple your money on it, that is something that I would for sure do. If it was, listed at $1.40 or $1.50 and I wanted to be at $2, I might do the $1.90. But yeah, if there's examples where it's just one card between me and that next floor, yeah, and it can be a double or a triple, that's definitely a good candidate for one to go ahead and buy the other one that's there and now own two of that for inventory.
Well, the logic is, if I was willing to pay 50 cents to list it, why wouldn't I be willing to pay 50 cents or less to acquire it and just, move it over to my account?
You talked about the using $1.70 a lot lately. Something else that I wanted to hit on, or I think is important for people to know if they're not aware, when you're dealing with cards on the lower end, like we're discussing right now, is that there's a storage fee associated with holding cards that are priced above 75 cents with a basic account or above $2.50 with kind of the advanced upgraded account. And so I often will see people that have cards priced at 78 cents or 80 cents or something like that. And they're paying theoretically a penny a month in storage fees for those cards, unless they have that upgraded account, or the same thing applies at $2.50. And so I was wondering how often that type of thing comes into play for your considerations, or if you observe that same thing in other cards as you're, scanning inventory that's out there.
Okay. I'm just dying here. You're just uncovering my secrets. I will look, I'll sort my inventory by storage fee, by inverse price, and by the lowest price of those cards that are paying a storage fee. And I'm looking, do I have any cards that are, because I pay $50 a month to get the $2.50 threshold.
Okay.
So I'm not going to have any cards at $2.55. I've seen them there, but they're not mine.
Right.
Or $2.60 or $2.65. So I'm looking at those. There's no reason to, because just in a few months you've lost your edge. In fact, at $3 or $3.50 or $4, after you've been in there for a few years, you're thinking, if I did it at $2.50, I'm going to net the same thing. So,
and you may have sold it already, right?
And
you may have been able to turn it over.
Arguably wouldn't have sold it slower. So, yeah. So I think those are considerations, and people. Yeah, I mean, I wonder what's going on. I agree. I wonder what's going on. But then, that's the beauty of COMC. It's very democratic in the sense that it's, the seller can do what they want to do, the buyer can do what they want. And do you draw comfort from the fact that there's no messaging between anonymous buyers and anonymous sellers when, I hope you're not going to out me, but you intentionally, I think, have a name on there that's, right, personified with you.
Yep.
So do people message you and say, hey, cut me a break? Because I get that sometimes. And, the beauty of COMC is that it is semi-anonymous if you want it to be.
Yeah, I think I think there's pros and cons that come with that. I do have Wax Pack Hero as my username, and I try to keep that as consistent as possible, both for the content side and my sales side, is just part of my overall brand. I haven't had a lot of people reach out specifically for items on COMC, but I have on things I have listed on eBay or those other platforms. There's part of me that likes that COMC is a little bit independent of that. There's other times I know as a buyer that I found sellers that have multiple things that I'm interested in, but for some reason don't have offers turned on at all. Or there's a reason that I'd love to be able to have a conversation about obtaining multiple items from them. But at the end of the day, I think there's something kind of nice about not necessarily having to also respond to messaging within the platform as well.
I've heard Tim. I think Tim's a great guy, and he's sharp and everything. And he's a collector. He wants to do the right thing. But do you feel like I think that 90% of the complaints against COMC are about shipping? And I don't really, I bundle my shipping, it's rare. And so if you're not really shipping your cards home, then are there complaints for COMC other than very minor things? Because otherwise I'm hearing how many customer service people they have, and it must be, where's my shipment?
Yeah, I think it sounds like a lot of the customer service volume that they're getting is due and connected to the delayed shipping times that we're seeing. If anything, I think I've been very happy with the processing times. They've extended the expectation a little bit, but just recently I sent in about 1,800 cards to get submitted, and I just used the basic service, and they were due at the end of September, but they're already over half done, and we're here just at the beginning of July. And so I've been very happy with the processing side of things. I've never had issues with any kind of payouts or withdrawals. Nothing like that has been an issue. And so, yeah, I think right now the biggest pain point that they're feeling is with shipping. And I'm like you, I typically only would request 1 or 2 shipments a year of all the stuff that I bought. I just kind of bundle it all up and save it up and only get 1 or 2 shipments a year. And so, nothing, because I also trust them. I haven't felt the need to make a purchase and have it sent to me right away. I've been comfortable in just kind of letting those things accumulate. They're all things for my PC. They're not things I'm trying to flip in person or anything like that. So I've just been kind of saving things up during this period of delayed shipments.
Well, I think you're very savvy in the hobby. I try to be up to speed on things, but basically I'm trying to figure out, again, there's an incentive. If they just thought, hey, COMC is my vault, it's my vault. They're not charging me anything to hold my cards there. They're going to ship them eventually. If they really wanted to flip them, they can flip them on COMC. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to figure out if they just thought, you know what, COMC is way behind on shipping. I'm going to consider alternatives to having them ship it to me. I'm going to repost it on COMC. Or I'm going to tell my friend to join COMC and buy it from me. I'll take a special offer from them or something. But if it's just for your PC, it's your vault. It's a vault. It's there. Otherwise, you're just going to get frustrated because anybody that's run. And one of the things I think it's interesting that I enjoy hearing you talk about is when you bought 1 million card inventory. When that happens, you have a completely different perspective about the volume of the industry. Now, you got to multiply by many times to get to COMC. Pulling an order, if somebody said, hey, Mike, I know you bought those 1 million cards. I want 1 card from this set, 1 card from this set, 1 card from this set, this sport, this other sport. You would, it's mind-boggling. And so how they're able to pull orders, and I guess they're adding equipment and stuff like that. I just, with our company, we, other than grading, which is complicated, the magazines, how many magazines do you want? What issue, what sport? So my hat's off to the grading companies and COMC that are pulling these orders. Even the auction companies, they have a finite number of auction lots. And if you win, they're going to mail it to you and they're going to charge you the postage. But pulling an order that I want one from over here, one from over there, that's just, I would say if COMC does start giving tours, that'll be something that it could benefit them because it could really reduce their customer service complaints. When people see it, they say, oh my goodness, I had no idea the scale of this. They complain that they're not hiring people fast enough when they're hiring, a person a day or something or more, 50 people in a month.
Yeah, it's they're definitely scaling up. I think the same thing applies even when you submit cards, and the level of knowledge and expertise that it takes to get all of these random cards thrown together in a box and be able to properly identify and categorize that card, and some of the more obscure things. It's a lot that goes into that, and it's I can only imagine what it takes to do that. And they've got some good people with deep knowledge and broad knowledge that are able to make that happen.
You send in a card and they reject it for whatever reason, not supported, something like that. If it's a cheaper card, what do you do? Because now all of a sudden you maybe had to pay for them to list it as not supported, and you maybe have to pay for them to ship it back to you, or they'll give you an option. You can just contribute it to charity. So I do charity if I think it's not a very expensive card. What do you do?
I have only had that happen a couple times. Honestly, only a couple times in the last few years. And typically I've had it shipped back to me. There were a couple, the ones that it happens to me most often are more obscure vintage type stuff where I didn't know exactly what it is, or if it's authentic or not authentic. I'm not sure. So I wanted somebody else's opinion on it, and it would come back as unsupported, or they weren't able, it didn't have any kind of authenticity to it. It wasn't confirmed as inauthentic. And so if it was, it could have some significant value to it. And so I just had it sent back to me, and maybe at some point I'll go a BGS route or a PSA route or SGC or some other avenue to be able to try to gain some authenticity for it. So more often than not, that's the type of thing that I've had come into play. If it's something that's really not worth much, or it doesn't appear that even if it is supported would be worth all that much, I'm not usually going to even send that kind of stuff in. You definitely enjoy vintage, and you definitely have a threshold of condition level that you're looking for when you're buying vintage. I was wondering, when you look and find vintage cards on COMC, the same card will have multiple listings of, in multiple categories of condition that the site has assigned to it, but it's not always super consistent. There can be things that are good, very good, where the card looks fantastic, and others in different categories that look way worse, but are at a much higher price. I was curious if you had any hints or tips or strategies that you use when looking for one of those vintage cards and finding the best card for the best price, when there can be such a wide range of actual condition categories.
Well, this isn't just a problem for COMC, it's a problem in the whole hobby. And so we're mainly talking about ungraded raw cards.
Yep.
And not necessarily super valuable cards, but still very collectible, whether it be a 5 if it was graded, or a 3 or a 7. It's hard to tell from the image. And so I think what's happening, which I think is going to turn out to be a good thing, is that eye appeal is really all you got with COMC. You've got scan eye appeal. You're going to look at the scan, and if it looks pretty nice, I guess maybe I've had some cards rejected for that, but I think if I priced it at a VG price and they say it's VGX, and it looks, and it's pretty well centered, and the corners are not horrible, that's a good collectible card in the 50s. And so I've sold some of those. And so I think the notion of eye appeal is healthy. for raw cards. If you want to get it graded to know the nuance and the exact centering and corner and edges and surface, that's one thing. But just to say, I want a nice collectible card in my collection to complete my set. And so I'm really trying to, of course, it's, you can't price the holder. There is no holder. You're just pricing the card. And, but people are buying, maybe it's priced the card, not the scan, but if I look at the card and if I flip it over on the back, which sometimes I'm lazy and I don't, but if it's got a big problem on the back, now that's a headache. But if it doesn't, and it's presentable in the front, I think those are going to be cards that do well on COMC. So that's it's problematic because, like I said, there's so many buckets they can put it in. And if you've got to check them all, again, if it's in great condition or terrible condition, it's easier. If it's something in the middle, that's tough. That's tough.
Yeah, I'll typically.
What do you do? Are you just price according to what you feel, or are you trying to undercut or trying to be, the patient seller like we've talked?
Yeah, when I'm buying, I will often just use eye appeal as the biggest driver, and I'll check a few of those different condition categories just to get a feel, because there can be some significant overlap in them. As a seller, I'll typically look for some that look similar based on the images that are on there, and then try to price similar. Some of that vintage type stuff are things where I will be pricing more along the lines of what it looks like a similar eye appeal card is going to have to the others on there, versus trying to be the lowest or anything like that.
Yeah, you could be the lowest within your condition category, but then there's a lesser condition, group, and some of those look just as nice.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I think it's problematic, but it adds a dynamic element that allows people, if they do their homework and really study it, there's some bargains there. I agree. Okay. Do you take advantage of downloading the spreadsheet of your past sales and doing some analytical work there of what's selling and all that? I've done that a little bit. It's a little bit of a chore. I think there's some, mining the big data. But do you do that very often?
I don't do it from the perspective of analyzing which cards are selling. I do it more from a financial or accounting purposes, tax purposes, and those types of things, to be able to capture my sales, my fees, and all of that type of stuff, where I can filter by category and, doing some of those types of things. So I definitely take advantage of the downloadable spreadsheets, but it's more from a tax financial purpose than it is for analyzing the categories, sports or players or anything like that.
You're a finance guy.
Yep.
And but I don't know that you're a tax guy. Are you a tax guy? Because I'm just wondering whether the COMC records that you could provide would be helpful in an audit.
I think that, so I'm not a tax professional by any means. I use a CPA. But when I showed her the data that I can get from those COMC transactions, she found it very helpful when pulling together my overall business statements and things like that for tax purposes.
What's the highest price card you would put on COMC?
That's a good question.
Let me clarify it, because I'll give a tip of what I do, because it's supposed to be tips and hacks and things. I don't want to put a valuable card on there that's not consistent with other cards on there, even though I know it could eventually wind up in eBay. I want to put things on there that people could reasonably go to COMC to search for. So if there are other cards in the set, nevertheless, I'm probably not putting rare Jordan inserts, that probably are more suitable for auction. So it's not the actual dollar price as much as is it in the right neighborhood? Is there proximity to other cards because I think COMC is a set builder's dream.
Yep.
And so if they're looking, I get several people buy several cards from an insert set, and whether they're more expensive or less expensive, they can make an offer or buy them all. So that's more what I go by. How about you?
I think for me, the approach that I use, especially when I'm submitting cards, is I will typically use COMC for cards between kind of that $1 to $25 range. I typically have found that things that are above that, I will go ahead and list myself on eBay, because I probably want to get that money a little bit quicker and be able to, recirculate it back into another purchase or another collection. So when I come into cards that are in that $50, $100, $200 range, I'll typically list those just direct on eBay, because I want to get that money back quicker, and I don't want to wait for the processing and the time that it takes to get it up there. I'm less patient on that level of card than I am for these kind of $1 to $25 type cards. And so that's usually the threshold that I'll use. I've probably sold some cards that are above that. There's exceptions to that rule. I've probably bought and relisted cards directly on the site that are outside of that window. But when it comes to me submitting something, I'm usually sticking to that $1 to $25 range.
Yeah, I'll go above that. Like I said, if there are others in the already on, so that's one thing. Well, my last one is, if I was listing a whole bunch of cards from one set, let's say 100 cards that are kind of $1.70 cards. They're filling in. It's not an easy set, but not a hard set, but it's something. And so all the cards, so I have 100 of them, and they're all going to be priced at $1.70. Do you know the hack for how to enter 170 without typing in the numbers?
I don't know how you can do it across the board. I will often Control C or Command C and copy, and so that I can just hit the paste and enter, and then it skips to the next one and paste and enter over and over and over.
Okay, there's a better way.
Okay.
Basically, you put in $1.70, enter, and then it automatically puts you down in the next one if you sequenced them, and you hit enter.
Oh.
Or no, you put star.
Okay.
Star, enter. And what it does is it repeats the price from the last price that you did. So you got to be careful. But, so it'd go $1.70. It's just star, enter, star. Actually, it's star. You don't even have to do the enter.
Okay. I was not aware of that.
Well, that's enough hacks for today. Thanks, Mike. Any last thoughts? Again, we love COMC. I think it's a lot of fun, and it's not perfect, but I think they're trying to make it better, and that's all we can ask for.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. I've really enjoyed my experience using the site. I've been able to add cards. I actually used COMC to pick up the 1968 Nolan Ryan rookie that I needed to finish off my 1968 set. And so I've had the comfort of even using it for cards like that. And like I said, we were talking about earlier, I've enjoyed turning pennies into quarters on the site as well. And there's a piece of that I just really enjoy, both the buying and the selling aspect. There's an opportunity to utilize some strategy and test and all of those things that I enjoy. So I can't say enough good things about the site, and I'm very confident that they'll continue to work through some of these shipping issues and things that they run into over the last couple months.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Mike. Thanks, Mike Summer, Wax Pack Hero. We'll both be back with more episodes in the future. I hope this was helpful. We wanted it to be helpful. More sellers and more buyers on COMC we welcome that. So, and I think Tim does too. So thanks everybody. Be back again tomorrow with another episode.
The Sports Card Shop is your small town local card shop with a global reach. Located in New Buffalo, Michigan, the shop is one of the most accessible in the Midwest. In addition to being an authorized Panini direct dealer, the Sports Card Shop carries all major trading card brands, including Topps, Upper Deck, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and more. With all that new wax, 500,000 singles, and showcases full of graded cards, you're sure to find something great for your collection, whether you're just starting out or a seasoned collector. The Sports Card Shop is your one-stop shop. So call us, come see us, or visit us on the web and social media. Our phone number is 269-469-0140. Website is thesportscardshop@moco.com. The Sports Card Shop is part of the Moco Retail Group, connecting sports, the hobby, and people around the world.
Well, if you wanted to step up your COMC game, then that was a conversation for you. I hope you picked up on it. Just felt like two friends talking about how they use COMC. And so I had really enjoyed the conversation with Dr. Beckett, and I hope that you did too. Let me know what you think. Reach out to me at waxpackhero@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter at @TheMikeSummer. Follow me on Instagram or TikTok at WaxPackHero. I'd love to know what you think. Leave a rating and review on your podcast app of choice. I'd really appreciate it. Well, that's all I've got for you today, so I'll catch you next time.